Please be seated. So I heard a rumor that there's a hurricane out there, and this is our eighth. We counted. This is our eighth time to go through a hurricane since we've been here for 17 years. So we are by no means experts. So, but here's the deal. This one feels like the times when I was growing up and I got in trouble with my mom, and she sent me to my room and said, "Just wait till your dad gets home." All right, anybody else ever experienced that? It took forever for Dad to get home. There was no video games, no cell phones. You just sat and you waited, and it's like, please let the beatings begin so I can get this over with. That's what this storm feels like. Just get it done, right? But one of the things that is amazing through these journeys of seeing hurricanes, it's amazing what can happen when people work together. So I've been watching all of the utility workers come from all over the country, as far away as California, and they're here, and they're waiting, and they're ready. As soon as the power goes out, they're going to get to work. As soon as it's safe, they're going to get the power back on. And it's just phenomenal to see how, when we choose to work together, the things that we can accomplish. So tens of thousands of people, and maybe no people in Florida, will lose their power this week. We don't really know yet, but when it happens, if it happens, it'll all get back on. It's just phenomenal to see what we can do when we work together. Now, we've been talking about, as a community of faith, the power of team. We've been talking about how each person matters. We've been talking about how we can work together and God can use us to accomplish amazing things because as a team we accomplish so much more when we're on the same page and headed the same direction. And today, as we wrap this up, we're going to talk about some specific things that each of us can do, or a couple of specific things that each of us can do to help the team reach its full potential. Okay? So we're going to be in the book of Hebrews. Now, a couple of things about Hebrews that you need to know before we look at it. We don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. There's a lot of guesses about that. But what we do know is that Hebrews was written to Jewish Christians. To Christians who were facing a very significant persecution. In fact, they were losing their lives because they chose to follow Jesus. And so the writer of Hebrews, there's some incredibly wonderful theology in the book of Hebrews, but it's also a letter of encouragement to stay true, stay strong, even in the midst of persecution. Okay? And that background is key to the passage we're going to read today. So we're in Hebrews chapter 10. We're going to camp out at verses 24 and 25. It's on page 1211 if you use the Pew Bible. Hebrews chapter 10. We'll start with verse 19, just to give us some context here. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 19. And the writer wrote this, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is, his body, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having bodies washed with pure water." I want to encourage you to take some time to focus on that sentence another time. It is incredibly powerful, what the writer says there. Verse 23, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." So I'm going to look at the two verses, 24 and 25, and look at them in a little more detail if we could today. Verse 24, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. As servants of the King, one of our jobs is to motivate each other to love, which leads to good deeds." Now let me share with you a little bit on the Greek here. Of course, love is the agape love. It's the perfect love that God gives us. It's a love that says, "I love you," period. The word careful consideration means contemplation. And so what the writer says, I want you to contemplate how you can encourage each other to continue loving so that you will do good works for other people. Now, going back to the context of what was being written and to whom it was being written, these are people who are facing persecution, people who are facing terrible realities in that they may lose their life because they follow Jesus. And the writer says, in the midst of all of that, I want you to love anyway. And I want you to figure out ways to encourage each other to love, and thus then you will do good works for other people, even those who don't like you. Even those who want to hurt you. Even those who want to bring difficult times into your lives. Now, let's be honest. God brings some people into our lives that are hard to love. I mean, nobody in this room. But God brings people into our lives sometimes that are hard to love. Right? Can we agree with that? Right? I mean, that it just is what it is. But the call is to love anyway. Now, we're not facing anything like the people who were reading Hebrews at the time it was written, what they were facing. But we need to understand that the call is still the same, that we need to find ways to encourage each other to love, to even love those who are unlovable, so that we will be pressed to do good works as we love them. Now, this idea of how to motivate each other to love, it can be a little difficult because there are some types of motivation that are bad. Okay? So I remember when I was playing high school football. Football season's here, so I'm sorry. But anyway, I was playing high school football, and one of our coaches was a huge man. I mean, he was like 6'4". He probably ran 255. He wasn't overweight. He had played previously for the Cleveland Browns as a linebacker. All right? And so, he wasn't the nicest of men either. Right? When he wanted something done, you knew that he wanted it done. And typically, you didn't question. So just as an illustration, he would get upset with his linebackers, and he would get the best offensive lineman we had, the lineman across him. And without pads on, and the lineman would have pads on, he'd say, I want you to come and hit me. And the lineman would just take a stall step, and he'd grab him by the face and ask, no, you come at me full speed. This is going to be weird. So he came at him, and bam! The lineman's on his back. That's what I want you to do. Yes, sir. All right, so he had this, we were terrified of Coach Woods. He was a good man. We were scared to death of him. That's not the kind of motivation the writer of Hebrews is giving us. Right? That's not what he's saying. We don't scare people into loving. Right? But we motivate people to love because that's what we've been called to do. That's the way that's been paid for us. And we have to see, and we have to realize that when we represent Jesus Christ, and we represent Him here on this earth, we come as salt and light. We talked about that not too long ago when we talked about the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus called us to be salt and light. Salt was used as a part of the offering process. And every time an offering was made at the temple, salt was used. And Jesus was saying, listen, as salt, you need to be something that represents the covenant between God and human. And then when it comes to light, you need to bring light into darkness. And people need to see love, and they need to see hope, and they need to see God in your life. And we've been called to be salt and light. So one of the things that I want to encourage you today is that we have this fall, we have several opportunities coming for you to love, for you to serve. I want to point out one, because there's a lot of questions about this, so I want to make it real clear. For years, we have had, on Halloween night, we've had a fall festival, where 1,200 to 1,500 people show up, and we give out candy, and we have all kinds of things that you jump in, games that you play, and just craziness, all right? And so what we decided, though, is that the Saturday before Halloween was called MurrayHill. MurrayHill Preservation Association is putting this on. And last year they had a children's area that didn't go so well. So, not attacking anybody, but it did bad. So we went to the MurrayHill Preservation Association and said, we want to move our fall festival down to your event. And we'll take care of all the children's stuff. They said, well, we charge people to go into that section so that we can raise money. How much did you raise? Told us, I said, okay, we'll pay for that. We want everybody to use it for free. Right? So, we're taking the fall festival down there. Why are we doing that? There's a high probability when you have 5,000 people come that you're going to meet somebody that's hard to love. I'm just telling you, out of 5,000, there's bound to be one person that's hard to love. Bound to be. Right? And we're going to interact with people who choose lifestyles that are different than what we choose. And that's okay. Because we're going to go be salt and light. In the middle of the place that needs it. See, that's what we do. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's easier to not do those kinds of things. But we do that because we want to motivate each other to love. And motivate each other to serve. Because people need to see love. And they need to see ministry. And it will transform their lives. Not because we're awesome, but because our King is. Right? So I think the writer of Hebrews was telling his folks, listen, you may be sacrificing your life for this, but it's okay. It's worth it. Keep loving. Keep loving even those who are hard to love. All right, so he goes on to verse 25 then, and then the writer of Hebrews starts meddling a little bit. Verse 25 says, after verse 24, you encourage each other towards love and do good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. See, I think it's important for us to understand that this whole idea of loving and serving and having this agape love for the world doesn't work in isolation. See, this whole following Jesus, it's a team sport. And we can say that it's not. I've heard so many people tell me, you know what, I love Jesus and we have a good relationship. I don't need the church. I've heard that a lot. Right? The writer of Hebrews, for the word of giving up, the word of giving up means abandon. Don't abandon or desert. Meeting together. And when people tell me that I don't need the church, there are two things that come to mind. First of all, it's not true. Right? No matter how much you love Jesus and how close you are to Jesus, every one of us needs somebody to be in our lives who can kick us in the backside and get us back in line. I'm just telling you, accountability is a huge part. We need that. Right? And we need the fellowship and we need the encouragement. And we can watch TV preachers, and there's some great ones out there, but they can't kick you through the TV screen. Right? And so it's very important. But the second thing is this, and I've really thought a lot about this. If there really is somebody who is so close to Jesus that they don't need the community of faith, the community of faith needs them desperately. You need to come teach us how to do it. You need to come show us the way. If you're so close to Christ that you don't need the community of faith around you, then please come invest in the community because the kingdom needs you to do that. And that's just a big deal. About 4 months ago, I tore the meniscus in my left knee. And for those who don't know better, I tried to convince them that I did that dunking a basketball. But it turns out when your vertical leap is 3 to 3.5 inches, there's no dunking a basketball that goes on. So most people caught on that isn't really what happened. It's embarrassing to say that I tore my meniscus hitting golf balls at the driving range. That's an old man injury. There's no way around it. That's an old guy injury. Right? So it took 8 weeks for me to get an MRI because of scheduling, and I had the trip to Wales where we walked for 8 to 13 miles a day, prayer walking. I didn't know what was wrong, got back, got the MRI. I said, you have a torn meniscus. So we sat down, and she looked at me and said, well, you have 3 options. Option number 1 is surgery. Very routine procedure. Thought to myself, well, it's routine for you, but it's not routine for me. What's option 2? And she said, well, you can do physical therapy. Okay, physical therapy is okay, but my experience with physical therapy is I go to someone and they torture me for an hour. What is number 3? Number 3 is you can do the physical therapy yourself. Okay, now we're getting close, right? What does this mean? Talk to me about this physical therapy yourself. But she began to tell me that how I could lift weights with my legs, and I could build up my legs to the point that I probably would never need surgery. I like this. So I decided to lift weights with my legs. Now, I've been lifting upper body for a long, long time, but I quit lifting weights with my legs when I quit college football because I just hated it. It was miserable. It was painful. It was laborious. I didn't want to do it. I didn't have to do it, so I didn't. So I went to lift weights with my legs for the first time in over 30 years. Now, if you work out normally and you take a few weeks off, you come back and you're a little sore the first time. When you take a few decades off, your body is in atrophy. It was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. And so, through the process now, I can walk relatively normal. I don't know that I ever walk normal, but I can walk relatively normal, and things are coming around. And I guess I'll be lifting weights for the rest of my life, and soon you'll be buying new pants. I say all that to say, in our spiritual journey, when we don't actively use our faith, spiritual atrophy sets in. When spiritual atrophy sets in, your whole spiritual life begins to crumble. Now let me be clear, I get it. When we go on vacation, at least one Sunday when we're gone, I'm going to play golf when it's time to go to church. Just because I can. That's my little piece of rebellion that I have in my life. I'm going to play golf one Sunday out of the year because I can. So I get it. I get it. That there are times that we need breaks. There are times that I understand that. But when we distance ourselves from the community of faith, atrophy sets in. And it destroys you spiritually. It just does. So, the second thing that I'm going to encourage you to do today is I want you to be connected to the community of faith. Right? And I want to encourage you that I'm not talking about this meeting. This is fun, and this is exciting, and this is good, and I don't want to discourage you from being a part of this. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Until you're connected to a smaller group of believers, you're not really experiencing the church. You're just not. Because it's in those smaller groups that you talk more in depth, you learn each other's needs, you care for each other, and that's where it happens. Every week, we have a small group that meets of young adults. I know most every adult to me is an adult now, but these really are young adults. But the conversations go so below the surface, so deep. We can't have it in here. We just don't have the time or the way to connect. The way that we care for each other there is so different because we just don't have time here. And so I want to challenge you that to be a part of the community of faith, you need to be a part of a smaller group. Whether that's a Bible study on Sunday morning or a group that meets at different times during the week, you need to do that. So Doug Cooley's going to be in the Welcome Center when we're done. If you're not connected to a small group, you need to talk to him and find out the best one to go to. If you don't like the first one, it's okay. We'll find one for you. Be connected to a smaller group. Because we need that encouragement. We need that accountability. And if we don't have it, atrophy sets in. And it just kills you spiritually. Right? So, those two things. When it comes time to serve out of a loving heart, and encourage you to be a part of those events that happen this fall. We have several of them that are taking place. And so I hope that you'll participate. Second thing is, connect to a smaller group and see how God grows you. That's a huge deal. It's a big thing. So, I can tell you so many stories about people who just quit. And you know stories about people who just quit. It's not that they quit and go someplace else, it's they just quit. And what you find over time is you find that King Jesus just loses his significance in return. And here's the hard thing, is he'll let you do that for a time. But I'm here to tell you, those of us who have the Holy Spirit in our lives, won't let it go on real long. There's going to be a miserable part that's coming. God, for whatever reason, when he designed us to need each other. He designed us to need others. We have inside each and every one of us this drive to know and be known. Now, some people want to be known by just a handful of people. Some people want to be known by thousands. We all have this desire to have community, at least a few. And if you're missing that, you're missing out an incredibly important part of this journey of being who King Jesus called us to be. So, again, challenge you, find a small group, find a place to serve, and let's just see what God does and how he will transform us. One last cool story, and I'll wrap this up. I know I'm rambling, but just so much is coming into my brain. Had a really cool story today. Someone told me they encountered someone at the store they never met. And they had this conversation, and it was a really cool conversation about faith. And they came and told me today and said, listen, you've been saying this for a long, long time. Now I know it's true. Wherever I go, God is working around me. And there's nothing like it when you get to participate in what he's doing. So hear me say this. If you're not loving and serving, you're missing out. You're missing out. So jump in, join us, and let's see what God does.